And we're live. What's up, Colborn?
What's up, Jesse?
How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm
Yeah?
good. Yeah.
Awesome. You sound like it.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
It's interesting. Just for the first time in a while, years, right? I finally feel like equanimity. I feel at peace. I feel like I am where I'm supposed to be, and that like everything is calm, cool, and controlled.
Yeah, dare you say it's stable? Are you stable?
it's the it's the longest it's the sweetest little taste that I've had in a while.
I hear you. That's really nice to hear, man. And right before we jumped on this call, you were just showing me you're actually in the church right now. So I guess first of all, just a brief intro. Colborn and I met, what was it, a year ago? Just about a year ago now, I think.
Yeah.
I think NFT NYC was
maybe more, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, we met online and then we met in person and hung out a few times. We went to that party and all that, and really great time. I had a really great experience hanging out with you a few times in New York, and then kept in touch ever since, obviously. But you're the founder of the Museum of Crypto Art, I guess we should say off the top. I'm sure most people watching this probably know what that is. I don't know. Do you want to give like a brief overview of what that is, or fuck it?
I mean, the beauty of it is it, like, in my mind, it always changes. It's as much a place as it is a mindset, right? And it's really just meant to keep that like free and wild spirit and be a home for artists.
And at the core of it, it's kind of a collection that you started at the very beginning of the entire crypto art movement. So you're kind of like, you're almost a historian, or you have a historic collection, you could say. In the future, you'll be looked to as like, this guy's got some of the oldest, earliest works, and I'm sure those works will be in museums, or you will find a museum yourself of the nature.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, it is a proper foundation. Everything we do is for the public good of the metaverse. It's really meant, the structure of the museum is really meant to reflect the structure of a decentralized network, right? I might have seeded it with 150 artworks, but the foundation now owns 250. 30 plus collectors, artists have all contributed. Everything that goes in is kind of this amalgamation of something that is just so much larger than myself.
Absolutely. I mean, you get a taste just even going to the Twitter pages and all that. For anybody who hasn't experienced that, just go to the Twitter pages and surf around. Honestly, to try to talk about everything that you're got your fingers in would be nearly impossible, it seems like, because you're a Medusa at this point, where you have so many arms and so many places and so many things going on. But one of the things is that do you live there? You're in a church now. You're in a church right now, which is like kind of the seed, it seems like, for what something might be in the future for the Museum of Crypto Art, or is already becoming a kind of a hub, like an actual IRL hub for it. You want to talk a little bit about that, because that's pretty new still. I think when I met you, you were talking about it, and then I remember talking to you maybe 6 months ago, and you were like moving in. I think you said your parents were there over Christmas. It sounds really nice.
Yeah.
So what's the evolution been like?
Man, it's crazy. It's almost been a year. I've been traveling so much, but like slowly it has just started to feel like home. I remember like the first days that I was in here, it was me and a buddy of mine from growing up. We were on like side-by-side air mattresses in kind of what would be considered the church. And it was the day that Matt Cain had dropped Gazers. So we were just like projecting a gazer on the ceiling of this and just like looking up and falling asleep.
Having a real spiritual experience.
Yeah, it was cool. So I have always played with kind of like the reclamation of sacred symbols and how do we reinterpret like myth and ideology and symbology. That's really what attracted me to crypto art in the first place, was a lot of people were playing with this iconography. So, the church was built in 1886. It's the Church of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. It was one of the most like strict forms of Catholicism. And I'm a person that lives in duality. I love the idea of this duality of like one, like the rebellious stonemasons, glass workers, the people of that time that like said, whatever Catholic church they were in wasn't strict enough for them, so they were going to go build an even more like strict Catholic church. And I just like playing in that space between like what is absolute freedom and what are the rules that we give ourselves that bring us perhaps like closer to creation or inspiration or magic.
Sure, that's really good. So you kind of talked about how that was a peak of interest, getting into kind of crypto art and everything like that, like the aesthetic, I'm sure, and playing with those symbols like you were talking about. But what got you into like crypto in the first place, or what brought you to the crypto space? Were you a artist? With like one of the questions I wanted to ask you is like, do you consider yourself an artist now, or did you take an artistic path to find yourself here, or was it a different path that found you here? Because I'll say from just personal, like you have kind of the spirit of an artist more than not, but I'll just say that from like a personal
that's kind.
level.
I mean, I'll say I never particularly felt like I fit in anywhere. I always felt outcast. I left California to go to New York City, I guess, to find myself, and I don't know what I found. I found something.
When did you do that?
2006.
I forget that you're a SoCal kid, because I mean that's where I'm now. And like I was talking to a friend just a little bit ago, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I was with Colborn." Like said something about going to like your parents' house on the way to somewhere else, and I'm like, "Oh shit, that's right." You like lived up up on the coast, I think, and shit. So that's wild. But like, so if you grew up in Southern California and then you went to New York, how old were you, and like what drove that?
I mean, I was 18 and I got into university there.
Oh,
right.
okay.
But like I went to the city once when I was 13 with my friend's father who grew up in Brooklyn. I remember it being like 11:30. It was way later than I had ever stayed up. The city was just like alive and buzzing. We had just passed by like FAO Schwartz. I thought the whole thing was just so dynamic, so alive. And, my life growing up was pretty much every day on repeat. It was just the same. And there was just like a lot of structure, I'll say
Why?
I grew up doing gymnastics as well. So from a young,
It's amazing. It's awesome.
Yeah, I know this, this might turn into like a therapy session, but it was like structure. It was discipline, it was militant.
So you were pretty serious into gymnastics. Like it was pretty like competitive gymnastics.
Yeah, I did it till I was 13, and then I was too tall. There was no point in really going any further. So
yeah, that's okay, cool.
Yeah,
that's really interesting.
That structure and that discipline is very much like at my core. But I think New York City represented something wild and free, right? And I found that and more. And then since then, it's always been a reconciliation of these two identities, right? This pendulum swinging between both concepts.
And that kind of brings us to where, like the very beginning, where you said you're finally finding some equilibrium or something. So, like,
it's
so
true.
I understand that living in duality type thing. I do as well. But what was like you talked about gymnastics, but besides gymnastics, growing up, not to pry at all, only as much as you're willing to give, but like,
Sure.
What was childhood like? What was the household, or like, was it a family unit or not? Or like, I'm just wondering those driving forces behind any of this.
Yeah, I mean, both my parents were together, still are together. My father worked construction. My mother taught ballet.
Okay.
It was, there was never anything in excess, but there was always enough. And I think that really taught me how to like at least think creatively and how to do more with less.
It's an interesting duality, because ballet would be, commonly known as one of the highest kind of art forms, very niche, very highbrow, and then, a construction worker is kind of like the opposite spectrum. And I love that. I mean, I love that. I have that duality in myself, the ballet and the construction worker.
Right. It's like, how do you get in there and get like messy with your hands, but also how do you like elevate it and make it fine?
And be very elegant while doing it, and like, like chic and all that. That's interesting. And growing up in California, was it hard making the transition to New York? I can't imagine moving to New York after living in Southern California, but you were a child, so you were young enough that...
we really didn't travel much. The first time I saw it snow was that first winter.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, my parents were like kind of more island beachy people. Was it hard? It's one of those things where you just like don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. And
right?
when you're 18, like what's hard when you're 18? Like I did all kinds of shit. I moved like 10 times when I was 18 or something. It didn't matter. I didn't know what was going on, you know? So
Yeah,
you're
I
like
mean,
young enough that you're malleable.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was like an anomaly to people, right? Because it was mostly New York, New Jersey, tri-state area, Connecticut, right? And here I was showing up in like velour sweatpants and Ugg boots.
You know, I was just gonna say, like you still have kept like the vibe kind of the SoCal dude though. Like you like wear bright clothing and like kind of have this like laid back attitude and stuff. So you've maintained like the roots.
Yeah, because like also, you know, I got kicked into a career of finance and I don't know, you know, there's something about stepping out onto the streets of like Midtown Manhattan, 7 p.m., 6 p.m. at night. Everybody is just so sad, depressed, like withdrawn. And, you know, I can't give into just like that terrible, it's just so dark. It's so dark. And if I'm not like, you know, like hoping or dreaming or living brightly with energy, then yeah, you know, that pulls me down quick.
So you have like a really positive disposition, kind of like the PMA, the positive mental attitude kind of perspective in general. Like where did that come from? Was that instilled by parents or was that something like you read Think and Grow Rich and you're like,
you know, that's certainly been a personal journey. That's been a personal journey of like what it means to have self-identity and express that self and to, you know, long for some sort of change and to not be passive to your own life.
To really excavate yourself. I get that. I mean, I excavate the fuck out of myself to like, you know, detriment sometimes. I'm sure everybody does. You do as well. I spoke with somebody the other day who doesn't. And it was just like encountering, you know, like a freak, but you know, but like no shade or anything. I was just like, whoa, that's incredible. But I get that, the personal journey, and I respect that. You know, that's a very suitable answer. But so within that, you touched on getting into finance. Can you talk about that a little bit? Just like where did that line up after moving to New York at 18? In between, sometime after that, you're in finance now.
You know, I wanted to be a doctor. I took one chemistry class. I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm competing with all these kids. These kids there's nothing there, right? There's no there. You know, I knew right away. So I'm like, okay, like, I want to definitely do psychology because I always loved psychology. But then I'm like, okay, I'll probably need to be employable. So I'm going to do economics as well. So
you didn't want to be a psychologist.
You know, in many ways I already am, but not by training. Yeah, you know, I definitely, that's part of my role in this for sure. But no, because that's like going to the office, sitting in the thing, listening to people complain. I needed something a little more adventurous. Yeah. So 2008, Great Recession. I was in kind of like this unique thing in New York City at that time where I knew I wanted to be back, but it was not easy to get a job, right? And I remember just like coming back and, you know, it was like, it's hard to believe now, but I was in a 4-bedroom carriage house. I was paying $800 a month on 14th and 8th to live in the basement. It was about like 5-foot ceilings, windowless, you know, and the rats would run through the walls. I'd hear them in the walls.
Wow.
And the subway would shake the thing. So I just took like the cheapest room I could get and grabbed the first job that I could. And it was like an investment banking chop shop. It was pretty wild.
It sounds like a very New York experience.
Yeah. I mean, it was just like one of those things, like anything to be there. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking of that. I mean, this is probably nothing like, but that movie Boiler Room is coming.
No. It was exactly Boiler Room. If you haven't seen Boiler Room, go watch Boiler Room because it was that, dude. It was like churn and burn on the phone like
Bro, I might have
10,
to watch
12
that.
hours a day.
That's a cool movie, man. But wow, okay. You know, you watch that movie and you're like, that's not real. That doesn't happen. That's just a made up scenario. But like, shit, bro.
No, it was
Cool.
like 23rd floor in Midtown, churning and burning. Like
Wow.
this guy had taken a box of like illegal client files from the failed Bear Stearns, and we were just like running through those, calling all these people. It was mad. I mean, I did that for 6 months.
Sounds stressful.
I mean, it was just talk about like, again, like existential. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, I wasn't seeing any of that money. But
Yeah.
the crazy thing is we were like filling deals. Like people would just cold call invest.
It
Like
sounds
law of
crazy,
large
man.
numbers, you know, that
Wow.
taught me law of large numbers.
How
which
old were you doing that?
I would have been like 22.
Wow. And you go, okay, law of large numbers. What is this? What is that?
Oh, that's just like, you know, you dial 1 million people and like somebody's gonna say yes.
Oh,
you know, you just like
sure.
you just hit the thing again and again and again and again and
Yeah.
again, and like you get to yes eventually.
Yeah,
So,
I get that.
you know,
I totally get
yeah.
that. I actually say that a lot with people say quantity over quality or quality over quantity, and I understand that point. But I'm like, but if you just quantity equals quality after a while, you just do something enough times, you land on it. So like with
Yeah,
art, it's kind of remains as well. But
yeah,
so
it's true.
with the investment thing, so you got into like finance and money, and now you're in the movie Boiler Room, and and somehow crypto gets into this, and it doesn't seem like a huge leap at all, but like 22 to now is kind of a long distance. So like, what fills the gap there?
Yeah, I mean, 6 months I quit. I went and did 2.5 years at the United Nations Capital Development Fund, building an infrastructure bank. Wanted to go save the world. Got like crushed by the insane bureaucracy there. Figured I'd go back to private sector. Joined a wealth management firm founded by vegan Buddhists. The whole idea was like, how do we use?
This is so you.
It's so me. Like everything is like, you know, only in retrospect does it fit so neatly. But you know, how do I use the existing financial infrastructure to effectuate the change that I want to see in the world? And every time I really thought, like, they teach you that capital, right, is like a fluid value transfer mechanism. It's not, it's concrete, right? Capital is concrete, and it just sets up these massive siloed structures that keep power the same, right? So when I found crypto, and it was first Ethereum, and it was prediction markets and smart contracts. This blew my mind, because suddenly we had like a fluid mechanism whereby value could transfer outside of all these regulations that keep people out of doing speculative, risky investments, which is really like the only way to accumulate serious capital. Is you know, and is the only true way to like have a say with your money.
Wow. I mean, when did you get into crypto? Like, when was it that you found Ethereum?
I bought, you know, it's funny. I showed somebody the email from, you know, I bought Ethereum on Coinbase in February of 2017. It was like $13.
Okay.
Yeah.
2017 though.
Yeah.
Okay. Right on. That's right around the time that I got into it, around there, I think. But yeah, this idea of so like you're saying money or capital isn't fluid. It is not like and like the way that people like to talk about it sometimes is like at least woo people, they're like, just think of it as energy. It just flows like energy, right? Like money is just energy, and you transfer energy, right? The energy goes through you and back and whatever. And you're saying no, that's bullshit.
Well, just, you know, it kind of is energy, but like think of the energy that something like the US dollar holds, right? It's like 300 plus years of just like straight up imperialism and war and like you know, so like yeah, it might be energy, but it's that energy, you
It's
know.
that energy. It's like blood money. It's kind of like
yeah, so it's not like you have like a say or know what the central bankers are going to do or what the government is going to do, or how
sure.
like every stack on the pyramid gets down to you, you know, at the bottom.
So like, go ahead and treat it like, you know, you can treat it that way, but at the end of the day, like there is a bigger mechanism kind of at play that is working against you almost, that, you know.
Like inflation is real, man.
Yeah. So, and so like with crypto, you saw like breaking free of that.
Look, it's like code is law, right? Code is law. So nobody is going in and like saying there's going to be more than 21 million Bitcoins ever, right?
Who do we have here?
Oh, this is a Coochie.
A Coochie.
Yeah.
Cute.
Yeah, he's cool.
Anyways, go ahead.
I mean, like those rules are written and they're written in the beginning, which makes it at least more fair to know what is going to happen in the future. And
the transparency of that and everything, kind of.
Look, you know, there is a separation of church and state. I truly believe there should be a separation of church and money, of state and money.
I mean, that was a Freudian slip, but
that was a Freudian slip for sure.
But also, like there is not though. They just say there is, you know. There's not a separation of church and state. That's such a lie, you know.
Yeah, truly.
I love this, but like, so you do have this rebellious spirit about you, and I've actually brought that up to you before. I've said that a while back, and like hearing about your path that leads you up till now, a lot of it makes sense. Even like you worked for a financial firm that was Buddhist vegans?
Yeah, they called it a wealth management firm. It was founded by vegan Buddhists who basically, you know, their marketing angle was like, how do you live your values through your money?
Awesome. I love it. Sure.
So yeah.
So like fast forward now, and let's come more towards like the start of Museum of Crypto Art. When was it that you were like, well, I guess to start the Museum of Crypto Art, you must have started collecting NFTs. You must have started collecting NFT art, crypto art. And so when did you find crypto art? Because that's completely separate from just crypto in general. Where did that start? And like, what were some of the, just like, what was the inception there?
Yeah, I mean, look, 2017 was certainly a precursor. Like, I was an original adopter of Mooncats. I was on this app called Additional that is now defunct. It was kind of like limited edition Instagram posts that you could claim and were minted as tokens.
What kind of things were they? Photos or like fucking?
Yeah, I mean, all over, man. I'll send you the collection. It was it was like memes or photos or like, yeah.
Okay.
So it was cool. It was a really, really good idea, right? Because it always called you back to the app because you wanted to like, you know, always see what was next and then claim it. But I think it just got like too expensive because they were handling all the minting on their side. And
oh, really? And what chain was it on?
It was on Ethereum.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
I did like different provenance investments. I think Maecenas was one with their art token in 2017. But it was, you know, I was at a conference in January of 2020, was hearing more talk about NFTs, the metaverse. You know, a friend of mine asked me to do due diligence in February on Super Rare as a platform. They were looking to invest. So I just kind of like hopped in there and, you know, I bought 3 pieces on that first day and then it was just like game over.
Really?
Yeah.
I was going to ask like, what was your art background up until that point? Like, what was your, I'm sure you've gone to museums and, well, you go to museums every now and then or something, but you go to openings at all? Were you interested in art? Did you have?
Look, my favorite thing to do in New York when I had a day off was I was living in Chelsea. I'd go walk up through Central Park and go to the Met, right? And I'd spend all day at the Met.
Man, the Met's awesome.
Yeah, it's just like, it's just incredible. So, and
the Met's pretty surreal. That Egyptian shit in there, like, it's like, whoa, bro.
I know. That's like, a bit much. Yeah.
So cool. Yeah. Like you had the appreciation for art, and you kind of spent your free time around it and enjoyed it and everything. So that makes sense. And then the crypto and the convergence of crypto, I guess, and art into NFTs.
And I guess I was dating an artist, which was kind of a major precursor as well.
So some insight kind of into the life of an artist, or
I mean,
what kind of artist was?
Yeah, she was an abstract painter. That was I don't give that enough credit, but that was kind of a major turning point as well.
How was dating an artist? I won't go too deep on that. I'm just
curious. I mean, it was
it
was equally awful and magical. of course.
So would say everybody that dated an artist.
Yeah. Like you feel like one day it's a disaster, the next day it's the most incredible thing. And, I love that. I love that.
Hard to sustain though, I bet. Like,
well, it certainly did not sustain.
time told that story, I guess.
Yeah.
But now you're collecting NFTs, you're engaged by art. So like what kind of thing was catching your eye there at the beginning? Like I kind of want to get into, and you even touched on a little bit ago, how like you're kind of a therapist now or whatever, just not officially trained or whatever. But like it sounds like you've actually worked with artists kind of coming up in NFTs then. So you established some direct connections with some of the big players, it sounds like, within the game, I'm sure, through like purchasing some of the work, collecting some of the work, etc. But maybe you can talk about that, like when it became this something else, came from like, okay, I'm on Super Rare helping a friend, bought my own pieces, and then all of a sudden, like now I'm talking to I don't even know, but just the biggest artists in the space and making some of the biggest purchases, making some of the biggest noise even in the space.
Yeah, it's if you weren't there, it's like really hard to explain and imagine, because like first like I bought 350 works on Super Rare for an average price of $300, right? So I looked at it just initially as like an investment, right? Like here is somebody taking the time to create something, and then like almost immediately it turned into something so much more, because then there was always access to the people in the space, right? That access is, I think, just totally gone now.
Yeah. But at the beginning, they were, I mean, now they're, not to make about money, but they're wealthy superstars within the space. If they were accessible, it would be a nightmare for them, I'm sure.
Totally. I mean, look, for even me running what I do, it's an absolute nightmare. Like,
well, you are, for the amount of stuff you do, and you're very accessible. Maybe, I mean, at least it seems to me like you're very good about responding and replying and whatever.
I try for every, I don't know. There's so many things that fall through the cracks.
Of course.
And
I mean, even for me, and I'm not even that, I don't even have that many things coming at you. Things just fall through the cracks. I get it.
I just work, and I like to work because I believe in it.
Right on.
And I believe in the artists.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about like some of those early artists you worked with. I remember just being like, I'm thinking of a specific artist, Fuocious, that you said. I remember being in a taxi with you actually in New York, and you were talking about talking with Fuocious in those early days and stuff like that. And in the time from when it started to that wasn't that long, right? It was
no, I don't know, maybe 6 months.
And it seems now when you look back on it, I mean, it already has like a lore almost to this time frame, which is crazy, like.
So I'll tell one story that like was super special that, people probably don't know, but, the very first show we did at the museum was with an artist by the name of Rhyolite. He was probably in his mid 40s, early 50s. But like every artist you spoke to was like, go check this guy out, go talk to this guy. Because he was really like the center of the community and the spirit, in that, he was a community liaison at a tech company in Santa Cruz. So he had like the background for it, but he was just so open. He would share anything. And, he was doing incredible, interesting work. So we put together our first like artist solo show with him. And then like a week later, he passed away unexpectedly in his sleep.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, so just one clarification. When you say we had a show for him, was this in the metaverse or?
Yeah, it was in Somnium Space. It was just, it was 3 pieces. It was a beautiful build by Desiree Cassoni. And it was called RGB, like the primary colors of Rhyolite. And it was a red piece, a blue piece, and a green piece. And it was just like a wonderful first show. Like, here's what we can do. We can, like, the artists responded incredibly. The community came out, supported it. And, you know, it's still there. You can go see it. Yeah.
Was this 2020, 2021?
It would have been probably like May of 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
RGB 2020. Where could people see that?
That's in Somnium Space. It's on a parcel number that I don't particularly know. Everything we were doing then was in VR.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So, you know, yeah. And then like that really hurts because
that's wild. So how long after the show? A week, 2 weeks?
it was like a week, man. It was terrible.
Young.
Yeah. Young.
Fuck.
Two daughters, wife, like.
What the fuck? Shit, man.
Yeah.
That's sad. Tragedy.
So and then, you know, and then there's like a desire to just carry that spirit, right? To like maintain that, to carry that spirit, to like keep an open door, to because nobody ever could have possibly anticipated or known that what was going to happen was going to happen. Yeah. So, you know,
it was like early on, like really instilled some real like ethics almost into the whole thing that you abide by.
And also like this idea of like digital permanence and like leaving a legacy and creating and sharing. And there's so much more to what was happening than perhaps just like the art. It was all part of this kind of, you know, broader like transhuman thing that I believed in this this intersection of, you know, man and machine, and you know, the blockchain as permanence and kind of the impermanence of physicality. And, you know, there was just so, that was, you know, I still think about that a lot.
That's a really, it's kind of I mean, it's a tragedy, but it's a tragic story, but it's bittersweet. You know, it kind of, it gave you like a nice example and kind of laid out a picture and a path, it seems like. But I love that you touched on transhumanism within this whole idea as well. Can you touch on that? You said you were like interested in it even beforehand. It's something that piques my interest, or have for a long time, actually. I mean, back in my younger days, I was pretty conflicted individual, you know, pretty like a disaster kind of a human being, and like, you know, still deeply excavating myself while being a complete mess is, you know, really just a disaster, you know, where you're consistently paralyzed or fucked up and out of your mind or something, you know. But in that time, I thought a lot about transhumanism. I'm like, fuck, I am so sick of like all this unnecessary bullshit and emotions. Like, I want to be a computer, and like I've really like dove into this idea of like, just upload me or something, like just get it out of it. Like, and I mean, that's not even real transhumanism, but just this idea of like being something besides, you know, just gooey, you know, flesh and bones and guts and stuff like that. When you're feeling as shitty as I did, it was very romantic to feel like, just upload me. This transhumanist idea really stuck into me too. You can see it in my art even back in the day. But what drew you to that idea? What drew you to like this idea of transhumanism? Is it kind of a spiritual thing for you, or is it actually that combination really that gets to you?
So let me tie it into like the ferocious story and why that was so important, right? Because you know, like as a kid, I wanted to escape, right? I wanted to get out. There was only so much like soma in the world, and I had everything like very, very good, you know. But you know, I played a lot of video games. I was pretty detached, and you know, when like you immediately knew when ferocious was like in it, that like anybody could become something else online in a way that was very like genuine. And you know, suddenly we had like the means to connect, share, relate, identify. You could see all of it in the art. So it felt to me like if this was an escape for this person, then so many other people who were feeling the same despondence could also find something greater in this space. And in a way that was probably much more like healthy and authentic and vulnerable than whatever like Call of Duty clan you're in.
I like that you related to the Call of Duty clan. I was thinking, I like that you used the word genuine. I wrote down genuine because I know what you mean by that. Like, so for me, it was like the internet has always been escapism too. Like from the time I was a kid, like when I was like, as soon as we could get the internet in the small little town where I'm from in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, we got the internet and it was immediately my way of getting out of there. It was like I was talking to people all over the world, AOL chat, we got the free AOL discs in the mail and I was like, let's do this. And I was on that shit all the time. It changed my entire life. Like that was a huge turning point, getting the internet and creating like not really, well, I guess kind of cultivating a persona even from that time up until now, through social medias throughout the different time frames, Tumblr, MySpace, fucking whatever sites all the way through. But it never was like as genuine as what I'm getting back to is like the way that you can move within this space seems more genuine than putting up like the front on Instagram of a persona where you're still very detached. Whereas within this crypto NFT space, metaverse space, that was much more genuine. Is that right?
I mean, look, like I never really played, Facebook or Instagram, or because I couldn't take the fact that there was nothing. Again, there was no
substance.
Right. So I have all of my life had, my challenge is like, how do I be more honest, or how do I be more vulnerable, or how do I begin? I was a very shy child. So like, how do I begin to use words to express things that I'm feeling? Or how do I connect with an art piece to like resolve a piece of me? So, my journey through this space is really a journey of self-discovery in a way that is more true to myself, right? I was never going to be an investment banker, right? I was never going to be a wealth manager, right? This is who I always was, but I needed, those breadcrumbs to get me there. And I think so many people, by the time, who knows when, right? Everybody feels probably like despondent and detached and alienated as a teenager, right? But then you have to try and find some way to fit into this economic system when the whole system is broken top to bottom. So a lot of people make compromises and they kill themselves along the way, or they like assume responsibilities that never allow them to actually be who they are. Which is, it is simultaneously a spiritual journey, and and I think I'm blessed to have been able to take the time to be introspective.
I feel that same way. I feel blessed for that. I like what you're saying here a lot. I've been writing while I do this. Because I too, I don't want to sound fucking cheeky or something, but like through the crypto space, even though it's only been like a year and a half for me, like even I've evolved and became more of like an authentic version of myself. And authenticity is something that's always stood out to me throughout life, was like the goal. Instead of placing goals on these other things, that's kind of been my goal, is to be like the most authentic me as possible, or whatever, like authenticity seemed really important, or is really important to me, but I never really felt truly authentic in these other platforms. And I don't even mean platforms like social platforms. I just mean any other societal platforms where I was fit in. I was a server for a long time until the art career took off. And then the art world, I didn't fit in anywhere either. I was like didn't fit in the traditional trying to make, do the gallery world, even though I was doing it. I didn't really fit in as a commercial artist because I was doing the gallery stuff, and I wasn't as flexible as most commercial artists would be, et cetera. So I found myself in a really weird place. And then coming into the crypto space, it kind of just was like the coming out of the cocoon type thing, like the emergence of like this different thing where I needed these new tools and this new freedom that I was afforded to become, the thing that I am now, sitting here talking to you, to have this time even to talk to you. Do you think a lot of people took that journey, or do you think, so actually, let me say this. It felt to me as if I was waiting for this, that I like almost inherently knew that this existed in the future without knowing what it was or how it would look or what form it would take. But I knew that there was something there that didn't exist yet. Like I just knew it, but it was coming. And like, I feel that now. I feel like I've been and I'm happy that I waited, because when you were saying like some people, compromised and they kill themselves doing other things. And it was like you said at the end, grateful that you had the opportunity. And I'm grateful that I was able to hold out long enough, honestly, is what it feels like. Like I held out long enough to get here. And like now it feels like we're just at the beginning of something,
Yeah.
Do you see that a lot in this space? Do you feel like there's a lot of people coming from this kind of like aggravated place of like, I just feel like I don't fit in here or there, and now crypto, because like you coming from finance, me coming from these different art worlds, and then I meet other artists coming from different fields of art, and then other people and collectors coming from other fields and other places, and we're just this like ragtag group of misfits at this point.
I mean, look, I never felt like I owned anything until I owned like Ethereum and Bitcoin, right? Because that was something like nobody could take away from me. And that instilled this idea of like self-reliance and not having to like depend. So that was a bit of like a, just like a pivotal moment in me kind of taking more control and realizing, that like you have to do things for you. Otherwise, what do? Like you sell your time to a company, you go pay your rent, right? You live day to day. And where does that end? It never ends, right? Because the whole point of that is just to suck everything up and out of you until it's like gold watch retired, like, good luck with Social Security. So, that feeling ownership, even if it was digital ownership, feeling in like control of money that, I think of the entire crypto market, back to kind of your point, as a futures market for ideas, right? So capital is very abstractly lining up behind pretty much nothing more than like a set of vision, values, and ideals. So,
was that similar though to like tech?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, let's just like put a bunch of money into, similar, right? Like the whole world is moving this way. Like, how do you get structural change? Well, first, like, let's dump a bunch of capital into it and kind of figure it out later.
And see what happens. Almost like a real-time petri dish or something like that.
Yeah. Pretty much, actually. And
it's a cool idea. It's a different perspective. I haven't really heard of it like that. I heard the perspective of like artists are being used as the case study, for like NFTs at the beginning. And it's like just a really good, immaterial material, I guess you could call it, for a case study of this technology, or, this new emergent technology. And I can see that too.
What NFTs did was onboard an entire class of creatives into an ecosystem that was predominantly, like engineers or coders, or it was capital. So it was generally like a bunch of left brain thinkers, and then you introduce like this whole other thing, and let's mash these two things together and figure out something that's more accessible. People joke that NFTs was like the ICO boom with pictures, but you know, it's much more tangible to feel connected to one, just a person, an artist, and two, the work, right? There's an interrelation between you, the work, and the artist that is, I mean, in my mind, it's priceless. So how do we get more people to begin that journey of like feeling that connection, feeling connected, and in a way that is outside kind of like a PFP? I think that was really a monster bastardization of the idea of like self-sovereignty that's inherent within crypto. That is very much more like, let's all kind of like sheep together. And then like call it exclusive. And you know, that was never really exciting or interesting to me.
You don't get into like the PFPs and stuff. Like that's something that I was gonna ask for sure. Was like, what do you look for? Like you talked about being into like some PFPs at the beginning, or having them, maybe even before there was really even like fine art on the blockchain, you know. But what is your, like, what do you look for when it comes to crypto art? Because you also mentioned something that I've found interesting, and I come across a lot that I'm not used to, is that I'm being in league with engineers and coders. Like you said, I'm not used to, you know, having my peers, I guess you could say now, be engineers and coders. My peers are always like, you know, drawers and painters and shit, you know, like, and now it's engineers and coders, which makes it like an interesting landscape to navigate as like one of the creators in this space. And like, I guess this is coming from my perspective, asking a collector, because we haven't had a collector on the show yet. So like, what do you look for in art, and how do you differentiate between like, what kind of NFT is this? Is that how you say it? Or like, what is this, like fine art NFT? Is this a collectible? Is this whatever, you know, like differentiating between the two? Like, I guess.
I mean, what has always excited me, like I certainly don't chase, right? And you know, what excites me is going to like the fringe, finding the weirdest thing, the weirdest form of self-expression from the farthest corner of the world, and trying to like bring that to the center and saying like, this is okay, this is cool, like we should be celebrating.
This is okay.
You know, we should be celebrating this person that is, you know, like somebody who taught me this that may or may not have been on the show is Mattia Cutini, right? Because like, here you have a guy in Italy doing like rubber hand stamps, right? And he is just like stamping everything. And you're like, okay, like, you know, like, is this crypto art? Like, and, you know, like the just like the incessant spirit to create the thing and like upload this digitally, you know, for me, it doesn't make sense until you're like, oh my God, like it makes perfect sense. Because at the time it was like very weird and avant-garde and out there when everybody was creating digital. He was a person that was creating physical, and he was like uploading his physical labor to the platform. And, you know, whether it's like cutting paper, Elon Katin did like the same thing. I think that like, again, like monster duality in that, at like a, you know, at a time when whatever, like Beeple might have been prevalent, and it could not be further from that. So, you know, that was exciting. Obviously, finding artists like Osinachi in the beginning was incredibly exciting because, and obviously the Forge story is right there alongside. Like, you know, what is this avenue for self-expression and, you know, becoming more authentic and uploading your creativity from any corner of the world, like permissionless? What does it mean to be permissionless? What does it mean to, under like authoritarian governments and in places where, you know, you might not be able to be yourself? Well, here you can be yourself, and your creation and creativity is valid. So how do we like point to those corners and just like bring it in, say like all of this is valid, and just seeing that art. And I think that's kind of like, you know, it hasn't been like a tremendously successful financial endeavor, but but it's cool. I like it, you know.
Well, it's too early to say, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, even I said it in the beginning, like even so much as just putting a bid on something is cool, right? Because
No.
that is forever and permanent, and that's recorded on the blockchain. So like, I see you, I recognize this. Like when I was collecting in the beginning, I would just go and put like 0.1 ETH bids on anything and everything.
Just like put a mark on it.
Yeah, just put a mark on it, like kick it into the front page of the market. Say like, I see you, this is here. Like,
And also it's like, I was here. You can say like,
it's a tag, right?
Yeah.
It's like tagging your
That's
street
interesting.
corner. So whatever, they accept it or not, or there were pieces that like that had sat for years and nobody had left a bid. So like, yeah, I'm here. I see this. This is cool. Like, and look, I really don't care about the ownership. I'm not interested in ownership. Maybe stewardship, but at this point, my collection is so overbearing, so overwhelming with all that I'm doing. Like, I don't even have the ability to properly steward it. So, like, a lot of the tools that we're designing in the museum are addressing like what it means to like help steward the artwork, what it means to be alongside the artist's career, what it means to like share, and like turning even that responsibility over to us to help let you do it much more easily, right? I think
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to do with like this rooms floor ecosystem is, it would take, which is, compared to the traditional art world, exponential, but in our time it felt like forever, but it would take like 2-3 weeks to put together an artist solo show, right? But now, we have like 3D rooms as objects. We have curation technology that allows you to bring in whatever works that you've uploaded, and then you can like one-click deploy it into 10 different worlds, right? So if we can drop that time frame from weeks to 15 minutes, which we've gone like start to scratch, 15 minutes into these worlds, into these exhibitions, I think that's really, really cool. And the more people are sharing, the more people are talking about the art, the more people are taking the time to curate, the more like people are writing about what they've done and what they're seeing and why they care about these artists, and then like uploading that curation to the blockchain immutably. I really think that's the next step, is like developing the art culture, the sharing culture, the collectors talking about the artists, doing thematic programming, and then like the aggregate of everybody curating these things. Well, that is what the museum is.
Right on. That it's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot.
But it's dope, and I especially love the stewardship for artists part, because I find myself even in the position, I'm not complaining whatsoever, but like I'm overwhelmed. I only have so much bandwidth. Like it's how I consider it. Like some people say like I'm busy. I don't like to say that, because like if I wanted to, like I could sit down and I spend like 3 hours more a day doing this other thing, but it would
Yeah.
probably fuck my head. So like I choose not to. And so I think I also think that's just a smart thing to do, like, to economize your own energy and stuff like that towards like the best use of it at the time, which for me is creation. But to have a steward would be amazing, to have people like you that is out there spreading the word of the artist and getting the word out there. And I wanted to ask, like, specifically, maybe you could talk about some of the ways that you do that. Like you touched on it through this, that, blah, blah, blah. But you have a team of people, and they have jobs, and people are kind of constantly working on. I got to meet a lot of them at the Minty party in New York last year. And so could you talk to us a little bit about maybe some of like the bigger points of what's happening, and how the stewardship is happening, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, again, the museum is it's meant to replicate the structure of whatever this term, the space, is, right? So there is no real hierarchical structure within the museum. I don't go and tell people like what to do, right?
You're not the
We all
boss.
certainly not. No, if anybody is, that's that's not me.
Who's that?
Well, that's Shivani is the boss.
Yeah, I was gonna say Shivani.
Yeah.
He seems
Shivani
like
is
it.
the
He
boss.
seems like it.
For sure.
Yeah, I would listen to her.
I listen to Shivani. Yeah. So, we get together and we talk and we ideate, and, and then the question is like, what are you passionate about? what do you want to do, right? Because what you are passionate about is ultimately what is valuable, right? And if you go and you love what you do and you say, like, this is the thing I'm doing because I love to do it, and this, you know, foundation is enabling me to do that, that's cool, right? So Rene, one, like, he came into the project. The dude is brilliant. He's like chief of tech, Ethereum developer since 17, has worked on some just like huge marquee projects. He kind of coordinates with a team of 4 to translate and build like this incredible curation technology and how to implement and deploy these rooms into the metaverse. And like the dude has like forever my deepest and sincerest gratitude, like on another level, right? So, and then Kirk, Untitled XYZ, like one of the most profoundly interesting, intelligent, like builders in the space. Like, again, like a pioneer of metaverse architecture to the like utmost degree, you know? So nobody is like going and telling these people what to do, because what they want to do is for sure going to be the best possible thing. You know, and like Michael managing the community, keeping everything in check. Karan 4D is running like our AI and virtual curator, and the stuff happening there behind the scenes is like mind-blowingly insane.
Karan is awesome. I love Karan. I met him at the Dementi party. We talked a lot that night, and then after that, a few nights, I ended up going over to his apartment in New York when I was still in town, and we just chiefed up fucking joints for like 5 hours, and he just blew my mind with like talking about coding AI and like just AI in general. And I just left that place just like, the dude's cool as fuck. He's got a degree in like religious sciences or religious studies, and then he programs AI, which is like such a brilliant like. So he's actually coming on this as well. I'm interviewing next week. So anyways, shout out to Ron.
And
that's super cool.
You know, he dropped out of law school. Just tight as I don't know if that's public knowledge, but yeah, like, well,
the dude's a baller. I mean, he's a baller. You just
So
what's his name of his AI? Felix. I remember.
Yeah, Felix is one of them. That was one of like the early, one of his first models that he built.
Yeah, I remember we were playing with it when I was over there. Yeah, that's like almost exactly a year ago now. I wanted to ask about like, you have the super rare spaces. Is that still something that's operational?
Yeah, it's an absolute nightmare, but you know, because you know, I whitelisted 250 artists, and I have to release every artwork. I have to set the price for every artwork. I have to accept every bid.
Did you? Holy shit! Did you have to do 250 artists?
Well, we did everybody in the Genesis collection, right? That was like that was like the give back to you know, all of those people that had been in the space for so many years that may have never ever had a chance to be on super rare. So that's like us saying, like,
that's mad sick. But 250 is a lot of shit to manage. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I get 10 requests a day, and it's like, it's not like I keep my wallets on hand.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like wild, so like plug and play easy.
Wow. So where else? You only play in Ethereum, right? That's it? Yeah, right on. And the whole collection's on Ethereum, right? Nice. So where on Super Rare, I know you can view a lot of it. Where else do you have a lot of your collection? Like, I'm just kind of angling right now to just kind of point towards people if they want to view like kind of the collection of music crypto. Is there a place for people to do that?
My collection?
No.
I have fragmented my collection. I am trying to because there's so much, I am trying to either thematically or stylistically curate it into different wallets. So people can kind of like browse by theme.
That's cool. That would take you need an assistant for that.
Yeah, it's nightmarish.
Yeah, dude. That's crazy.
But I love it, you know.
How many pieces do you think you own?
Oh, dude. I don't know. Maybe 1,500 maybe.
Wow. Here's something I wanted to touch on too. It's kind of an abrupt turn, but just like the idea of immateriality, of course, it's clearly not an issue to you whatsoever, especially you saying like the first time you felt like you owned anything was actually something immaterial, which is quite funny, dualistic in itself. But I mean, it goes hand in hand with the idea you own so many NFTs or so many pieces of art, I should say, and they're completely immaterial. You know, you can put them on a drive, you'd be like, they're all right here, look at it, it's all of my money I spent right here.
Yeah.
So like clearly you don't have an issue with this immateriality that a lot of people seem to.
Look, I
Without they
welcome
don't
it.
even well, me too, and they don't even realize that. I think right now we're kind of in like this weird I don't know what the word would be. It's like people are delusional in a way where like they think that because of a big argument against NFTs are just like, oh, you don't have anything physical or anything. You don't get the artwork or whatever. And it's like, why is that important though? You did like all the money you ever had. Do you hold it at some point? You know,
Right.
like you're already living in this post-material world. You use it every single day. But then when it comes to certain things, you're just like, oh, what? Like and it doesn't make sense to me. Like where did your like you seem so willing, where did the willingness come from? Like you have this inherent just like fuck it about that.
Yeah, man. I mean, like consumption is a curse. You know, the culture of consumption is like at the heart of capitalism, and we've exported this everywhere. So until we begin to like dematerialize,
We've exported consumerism.
and I think of my life, and I have seen like consumption at the most excessive, extravagant levels. There is, again, there's no there is no top, there is no thing that is ever going to make you happy or at peace within yourself. And I've like, you know, I've explored that, I've seen that, and you know, a lot of like the wealthiest people I know are for sure the people that are like the most paranoid, the most scared. There's so much responsibility around like managing stuff and things. And you know, I live in a place here in the Hudson Valley, which is like one of the, you know, used furniture capitals of the world, because people came up here, they created these huge estates, they filled it with all this beautiful furniture, and then they die and nobody wants it, right? And it just goes to like these furniture warehouses and these chop shops. I mean, I'm here with like, you know, a pew from 1706 that I got for like a couple $100.
That's
like
amazing.
Hand
Christ.
You know,
that's
like
a dream. That's a dream. In LA, that would cost like $5,000. You know,
do they? Yeah, for sure. But it's also
like it's a good from there. Like, do they export like?
Yeah. I mean, look, I'll sell it to you, bro. You want it? Like, come get it. It weighs 1,000 pounds. Like, you know, the guy who moved it in. Like, it's gorgeous, right? So,
like that kind of brings up this this idea of like, so I listened to Zuckerberg on Rogan. Like I felt it was kind of like a duty. I didn't want to. I did it on a drive to LA one day, and I just felt like I needed to hear it, you know.
Sure.
But there was an interesting part where Rogan is probing him on how the new VR shit will work and how do you become less intrusive, I guess, you know, like being more experiential and less intrusive, like, and he's talking about, you know, how sensors can see how you move and blah blah blah. Yeah. And it was interesting, but one of the things it brought up was this idea of materiality and the ways. One of the things they're studying is in what areas of life is materiality necessary for the experience and in what areas it's not. And so like, you know, a really good example is like a chair that has to be physical. You have to sit on it, you know, but if you can make a hologram of sculpture in the corner versus having that sculpture really there in the corner. But if that hologram looks real or whatever, as real as anything, how often do you go over to the sculpture that you might own in the corner and just touch it a whole bunch or anything? You know, like you right. don't. Right. And you go in a museum. This came up in an interview recently that I was doing with Right Click Save. Actually, they were interviewing me, and we came up with immateriality, and they were talking about like the necessity of tactility. And I was like, yes, but let me stop you there, because you go to the museum and they say don't touch the artwork. They have a bunch of people around saying don't touch the artwork. Don't even get too fucking close to that shit. So like this idea of immateriality within art is really interesting. Like, is it necessary? Could you have a hologram of that painting that that showed all the detail that you may see, that showed it. And do you need the physical piece there, or would the physical piece be better off maybe in cold storage somewhere where it won't get destroyed, or where somebody can't break in your house and steal it, or where you can just pack up and move and have it at your new home immediately? Shit like that. What do you think about these kind of things?
Look, I mean, one of the coolest experiences I first had in virtual reality was going inside the museum, having like a 40-foot tall blown up thing of the artwork, and then getting like pixel close, right? It's still the same almost experience as getting up and like seeing the brushstroke. It's there's an abstraction at that level that makes it different and interesting and experiential. Now, I get it's obviously not the same, right? But I don't need that stuff. And I do believe that things need to evolve. And if there is a way to push people into like digital consumption, then I think for the most part, it's valid.
And healthy. Like, I mean that, like, just, I think as a planet, as a society, to like shift towards digital assets where we're not just pumping up plastic goods and like non-filling, landfill and stuff like that it's good for the planet. But also, like, I love what you're saying, because I didn't know what to expect going into VR and seeing an art show, I guess you could say, for the first time, which was pre-NFTs. It was actually pre-NFTs for me. It was really early in the pandemic, March, April, May, maybe 2020. So I guess NFTs were around, but I wasn't part of it. I was part of a virtual exhibition called The Bunker that some dudes, like, at the beginning of the pandemic, just kind of built this video game gallery, and we're like, we're going to put our up in it. That's the pandemic. It'll be a virtual show. And I'm like, that's cool, whatever. And so I gave them some work, and they were like, how do you want it displayed? And my thing was like, well, these pieces don't even really exist in like the state they do exist in real life is small. So let's make them huge on the wall. Like, take that, like some way I couldn't see it in real life. And I entered that space in VR and saw that shit. And I had like, there's a feeling you have when you enter a gallery just from like, when you see a big piece on a wall, that you feel the immensity of it. You feel the size of it. And when I was in VR and I saw that for the first time, I had that feeling. Like, I felt it like inside. And then when I looked at a sculpture and I walked around it and it was bigger than what it could have been in real life, even, you have this other feeling of immensity that's beyond what you could even feel. And so then when you said it's not the same, I was like, but it doesn't need to be. It's something else. It's something beyond, it's something different. It's as valid, and it's beyond, and if you want to go to a gallery, nobody's saying those things have to go away. The museum will be there.
Totally. I mean, think of what we do in the digital. We continue to reduce it, right? We reduce it into the size of a phone screen. We reduce it into like the 14-inch computer screen, right? It makes it small and unimpressive. But suddenly when you open up like virtual reality, everything is expansive. There's literally no limit. And this was always the preferred medium for me. Because you put somebody in there and it is immediately so different than anything they've experienced, and you can cultivate and like push people towards empathy and like grandiosity in, like Federico Solmi, Italian artist in Brooklyn, created this incredible like bathhouse scene with like Napoleon Bonaparte's like going through the bathhouse on a horse, and there's Warren Buffett like smoking cigars and drinking champagne, and like Marie Antoinette and like the Pope, and you're like there in this grandiose scene and you feel it.
Where was this? Like, where could you experience that?
You can experience this in VR chat, I believe.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's incredible. And he's somebody who's been, creating like this for 20 plus years, like always ahead. You should interview him for sure, because he's like a mad, brilliant artist, like way, way ahead.
Say his name again.
It's Federico Solmi, or Solmi, Solmi.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've heard of him. Yeah, that sounds really dope. I actually want to experience this, but I love what you're saying here about like technology has been getting smaller and smaller and just kind of condensed and condensed and condensed, and then like this kind of breaks it back out, like it's like the Pink Floyd cover almost, where it gets refracted out now through this psychedelic kind of, and even literally how it I mean, it's so nerdy and funny, but like being like a social media, like using social media so much as a part of my art practice, it became so inherent at one point to, at the beginning of Instagram, okay, like everything has to be a square. Now you're in this box. And then it's like, oh, we can have, 810, fuck yeah, 810, 916. You're always in these, but literally in boxes. Just
Totally.
we're changing the size of the box for you constantly. And I always thought about that. I always like my cage. I thought of it as my and now it's literally, you can kind of break out of that cage. And I think it's so obvious, but it seems to have this resistance against all of this. Like, we're talking about these things that have such benefit in so many ways, like reaching as far as healthy for the planet, to make less goods and be more digital society, less materialistic and stuff, to have freedom over our own selves and our money, to not be confined digitally by the powers that be. So what is this resistance, would you say? Where is this resistance coming from? Or like, is it just like the is it even a moot point just because it's so typical, and it's happened just every single time there's been any sort of disruption and change? Like, a whole bunch of people don't want to change, and they throw their arms up in the air, and then slowly over the next 5 years, the change just happens. Nobody says anything, and all of a sudden we're just living in a new world.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back. People don't want to be free. They don't want to question what's going on, right? Like, I know probably like 80% of America is just living paycheck to paycheck. Like, disruption and change and all of this is incredibly scary. But like I certainly do not trust the powers that be to like dictate and control my life in that way, or be looking out for me. So like, how do you Trojan horse structural change? It's very, very difficult. And I got into this, and like I have definitely like a bit of like anarchist vibes. Like
man. I mean, I thought that was ringing in my head earlier, but I didn't want to get into politics. I was going to be like, are you an anarchist? But like, no politics, politics aside.
Yeah. I read a book that was, I shouted it out in like the very first interview that I did with Super Rare, which was TAZ, Temporary Autonomous Zones. And this was like really just kind of like a book of poetry and philosophy. And
what was this for though? Yeah, this Temporary Autonomous Zones. What was it for? The first.
It was
Super
like,
Rare, what?
I did this interview with Super Rare, and it was kind of like the book that I was reading at the time that was just influential.
Yeah. And when you talk about that, are you talking like what happened after the riots in, where was it?
It was more of like a precursor text to Burning Man.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that like 3 times. Oh, okay. Okay, wow. It's so different from that, because they called that a temporary autonomous zone though too. The like when they took over the blocks in Orlando or San Fran. But Burning Man is much better example of it. Okay, wow. Are you a burner? Do you go to Burning Man?
I have never been. I imagine that I don't know if I would relate so much to it in its current incantation. Large groups of people generally make me kind of nervous, but yeah.
The idea of it though, you were interested in these ideas of like post society or fringe societies or outside of society structures.
Yeah, I mean, when they are like organic and novel, and they're supportive and community driven, and I don't think you ever get to like an equilibrium on that give take equation. But I think I'm just like very kind of local. I want to be local. And I think again, like the aggregation of local is that is a decentralized model.
Think global, act local, right? Isn't that?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like, just be local. The problem is I think in America, another obsession of mine is the idea of the third place, right? Which is, first place was home, second place was work, third place was either community center, a church, a barber shop, some place where people like aggregated and felt connected to what was happening in their community. And I think very, very much we've lost that in America. And with COVID, most people lost their second place.
Yeah, word. I've never heard of this concept. Is this like a philosophical concept, or like some
It
sort
is
of
something that
developmental?
somebody proposed,
Really?
social,
It's interesting.
anthropological.
I'd never heard of that. The first and second place. Yeah, wow. Okay.
So it's like how you relate to your immediate surroundings, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, but this is getting far out because we're talking about local and place, but we're within the metaverse. What's local anymore? Or like, what's local for you now? Or like, when you say local, are you saying local? You're in upstate New York in a church. Are you talking about local upstate New York? Or are you talking about local, the people in your network online?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely found a third place online within the museum. Right? Some people might have found it in like the punks chat or in like the art blocks community or just, but like even, yeah, I mean, Twitter has been exhausting for me. Whatever I'm not like a big fan of the algorithmic bias. Yeah,
I agree with that.
I think that just instills in people their identity that they were yesterday, right? Because if you are an aggregate of all these likes and clicks of the thing you were yesterday, well, then it's just going to feed you the same. It's not incentivized to give you anything new.
Amen.
Yeah.
I mean, like we see that like compounding itself all the time, and the issues it causes has been documented basically and shit. Like it's ridiculous. Twitter is gnarly. Yeah, I have a hard time with it too, honestly. I think that's actually some people's second place, I would say.
Yeah, it is. That's like the new workplace.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
So
and that's
all this,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you go, please.
I don't know, it's brutal. Like, I want to feel, as somebody who has always been so like digital, so virtual, so I've never really felt like connected to other people. That's something I've always wanted to feel, right?
I hear you.
Yeah, so I did find it online for sure.
And you created it too. Is kind of like what I was thinking as you were talking here about like your position and where you find yourself now. It sounds to me like you've always kind of been searching for your place or like where you fit in and whatever. But because you're so dualistic, which I can relate to, like it's very hard to fit in anywhere. You can feel like you belong maybe somewhere,
Right.
but maybe not fully. You're still, have a foot maybe out the door a little bit, and you have something that other people don't understand over here, which I get. And maybe not like you're just creating it instead of like looking for it. You've created it, and you're now, just kind of trying to proliferate it, I guess you could say. And honestly, that's what FakeWhale is. Like everybody knows by now that it's like Sky Goldbase started it, which is a good friend of yours, a long time friend of yours as well. But we were just talking about that the other day because sometimes my anxiety will get the best of me and within the space a little bit. And I'll just be like, what the fuck's going on, bro? Like, I'll just have to vent a little bit, like, I don't get this shit. What the fuck that? Blah, blah, blah. Just some venting. But, we came down this other day of like, well, FakeWhale is the thing we want. Like, instead of looking for it or hoping somebody else comes up with it or hoping we find it, we're just fucking making it. And I think that's a beautiful thing to do. And it's so empowering. I think that's what you're doing. I think a lot of people in this space are finding that opportunity actually to do that as well. I would like to switch gears just a little bit before we have to wrap this up and everything and get a little personal on your just like outside of, crypto has clearly taken over your life. I don't know if you have time outside of it at all, really, but like I want to know about just maybe some like what else do you do, man? Like you have music taste. I know I've seen you post about music and stuff. Like what kind of music do you like? What did you grow up with listening to?
Oh, what did I grow up listening to? I mean, you know, I was of course like, well, I don't know about of course, but I was a monster like LimeWire, Kazaa, What.cd.
Cool. Fuck yeah. I
Yeah.
remember, man, for downloading a song, like putting songs on download for overnight. I'll be like, I'll have it in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. You know,
That's
and
fun.
I was always you know, like digging in the crates. I always liked, again, like obscure, and you know what does it for me now is NTS radio. So I just like,
Nice.
you know, they post their
Solid.
like top mixes every day. So it's like every day new music from all corners of the world, stuff that like I would probably never be able, because you know when they shut What.cd down, that hurt a lot, because that was like a library of Alexandria for music. Um, and you know then like I was kind of forced to get Spotify, and again all of these things just instill listening to the same thing,
Yep. Yeah.
which uh you know, which is a funny cultural trap, because like, you know, what is, you know, my, you know, grandma want to listen to? She wants to listen to the, you know, the stuff from the 50s. And what does my mom want to listen to? She
Mm.
like, no, everybody is like contemporary to the point,
And yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so like I
That's
don't want to
great.
be, you know, but like yeah, I definitely grew up listening
And
to like Rage
NTS is a
Against the
really good
Machine.
resource. I was just gonna say NTS is a really good resource for anybody looking for like fresh, shit to listen to. NTS has great curation and shit like
Yeah,
that. So in Rage Against the Machine, cool, the anti-authoritarian, like
yeah, what
instilled in
else I
that.
like, some
That's
of
so
the,
funny. What
I'm
you said
trying to,
about Spotify hits deep for me because, excuse me,
yeah.
um, I within the last 4 or 5 months, I got rid of my personal Spotify. I only have Spotify to upload these podcasts now through
Oh,
FakeWhale because it's exactly that, where the algorithmic nature of it was like influencing my listening habits to such a degree that it was like kind of stealing the joy of music away. It didn't feel personal anymore at all. I felt very detached, and now
yeah,
I almost listen exclusively to vinyl. And then
cool.
streaming shit like NTS or other streaming radio things that just feel more tangible and like more
Yeah,
personal, or at least like curated by a human being.
yeah,
Because like Spotify gets depressing when you're just like constantly like, if you like this, then you'll like this. And you're like, what's all that? And then you're like, if you like this, you like this. And you're just like 10 degrees separation deep. And you're like grasping for something. It's almost just like addictive feeling or something that you get from these algorithmic. It's like the same feeling that you get on Instagram sometimes and Twitter. It's just kind of gross. And for me, music is spiritual, like it's true art. And to have it be degraded is what it felt like to me, that I had to be like, fuck that.
I mean, I probably listen to like 8, 10 hours of music a day. If there's suddenly like a song that wakes me up out of whatever I'm doing, I'll Shazam it. I'll put it into, I have one running list on
Nice.
Spotify, and then if I hop in the car, then I'll hit generally random on that playlist.
What kind of things are you like stand out to you? Do you listen to like pop or electro, or like what's the taste
Um,
recently, or
you know,
metal?
uh I have pretty diverse taste. I like um gosh, man. I it's hard to like, yeah.
Have you been to a concert recently? Do you go to concerts at all?
I haven't been to a concert recently.
Okay, then
I
I'm
would
gonna
like
then I'm gonna
to, yeah. I mean,
I'm gonna
I went to LCD. I think the last one I went to was LCD Sound System in Brooklyn, and I hated it. That was so depressing.
that I'm gonna leave that as is and just switch to music and NFTs because it's something I'm super interested in. Maybe you have some insight in it that I don't, or whatever. But like, do you have it? Like,
No, I
what's your
don't
vibe with
collect.
music?
I don't collect music NFTs.
Do you think that, well, it's not even music NFTs that I'm wondering if blockchain technology and NFT technology can revolutionize the music industry somehow and get us out of that Spotify model somehow. And
I
I don't know.
would I
Is
would
it something
love
that you have
it.
any idea?
I would
Yeah.
love it. People fight me on this because they get really mad when I say I just don't see it.
Okay, interesting. So this is a topic that you've talked about before with people. They bring it up. And
Yeah, people
okay.
hate it. People hate it. I mean, like, you know, there's things. you know, I wish I could do everything. I love music. You know, I love music. I
You
wish
just
there.
don't find it to be an interesting use case?
Not really, no, because I don't.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't. You know, it's the sad thing is that like what happened to music was, you know, frankly, like the same thing that happened to like pornography, where it just became like very accessible. It just became incredibly accessible, and it became incredibly cheap.
Yeah, wow.
Um, and you know, it was like, so you can't really unwind that.
Okay, that's super interesting. I know what you mean. Like music was so democratized. It became so readily available that how do you backtrack on that at all? And
Yeah,
I've been like when I think about music and NFTs, because music is such a big part of my life, like I always come up to it's kind of I think it's part of the problem is that music needs to be accessible all the time, everywhere you are. The idea of music is like it's in your car, it's in your
yeah.
headphones, that you get in your house, that you're at your work, you're at grocery store, you're at the fucking everywhere. Music, and it has to be accessible. How do you do that with NFTs? I mean, in the future, NFTs will be everything, of course, but at the moment, like, how do you do that with exclusivity, with any sort of, rarity, or having any sort of like limited supply of these things? So it would have to be a completely different model. Like, I'm having a hard time because of the way that music has been so fragmented. Like, how do you put that back into like some sort of structure of other thing? But I think like the music industry is going to have to find another way out.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's I would imagine that like the visual arts community is probably larger than like the people who deal with music and vinyls.
Yeah,
Right? So if like we're gonna say that, you know, if blockchain is like the vinyl for,
collectors of NFTs or collectors of digital art, or
yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know. I struggle
no,
with
I
it.
feel you.
Yeah, I struggle with it. I haven't put any sort of brain power to it.
No, I mean, I think you're onto something with this. Like,
Because
went the way of porno.
also it's like about attention spans, you know, there's you in this day and age you have 2 seconds to capture somebody's attention, right? So there's you know, the eyes generally is a quicker input
Yeah,
to the brain than the
that's
ears.
interesting. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So, I mean, it also alludes to that idea of that art, I guess, art, visual art. Is that what you'd even call it anymore? But like, it was a man. I'm blanking on all the right words, but it was a product that's been unexploited. It's like it do an asset that's been unexploited, I guess you could say, because nothing has come around that's been able to monetize the output of creators on social media, basically, or the creators of like somebody who makes a movie, using certain software and then also makes like art with it or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so like that, yeah,
There's something about I think visual art as more individual, right? And belonging more to an individual, and music
where
more
where it can
more
belong where it can belong to one person and be appreciated by a lot of people, maybe.
I mean, kind of, but like perhaps nobody appreciates it in the same way.
Mm. I think there's definitely something about like we were just ripe, very ripe for the picking at the right time, the right place, and luckily unexploited at still somehow, like the most exploitation that visual artists online have gotten, is commercial work. Like that
Right.
was like how they would make money. So like it's pretty interesting, especially when you relate it to music going the way of pornography, where it just got so like fragmented and so available, so cheap, free basically. And whereas art, it never costed anything, I guess, like this internet art never costed anything. So it was unexploited material. And that it just seems like there is definitely something there. Like in a way, I feel lucky for being, like, because I've been building up this for like a decade and waiting, for
Right.
something like this to happen. I talked a lot for a while about this actually directly relates that a lot of my friends are musicians, and they would complain about the Spotify model, some of them, or you would hear it a lot, I guess, on Instagram and stuff like that. And I always thought and would say every once in a while, like, at least you get something. You know, I post, you know, a lot on Instagram and whatever, and constantly hearing from people, oh yeah, your images are all over our mood boards, or you were such an inspiration for the last collection or whatever, you know, like, but never making any fucking money. So it was like, at least you were making money off Spotify or whatever. As artists, you know, we never were.
Yeah.
We never. So it changed everything. And yeah, I mean, I don't even remember where I was going with that, but it's just feel lucky to have built up into this.
It's just they're different. And when people try and take what works in one and apply it to the other and say, like, this is not different, it's actually the same, I think it's super disingenuous. And you don't get to just like bootstrap something else because it worked somewhere else.
Yeah, word. I love that. Yeah, just because we can, do we have to type thing, or like just because we can, should we?
Right.
So that being said, then what do you think coming next, or like so crypto art and NFTs will diverge, right, at some point, or kind of NFT word will probably change and evolve into something else or whatever. But like, we're talking, right, we just talked about how music maybe not the best use case, NFTs aren't the use case for everything, but where do you see it going then? Or where do you see the applications being really strong, or what are you maybe personally excited about?
Man, I haven't really been it's a question. It is a question. I'll say NFT now is a very dirty word, right? It's a very, very dirty word. People don't want to be associated, I think, with NFTs, right? Metaverse feels pretty hot. I think like AI and machine learning is super, super hot.
Super hot. What about though, like, we just heard, excuse me, in the last week or two, what did we all hear about? We heard about Disney, Starbucks, Universal, like theme parks and shit like that. Like big companies now coming into Web3, NFT experiences throughout their theme parks and shit like that. So like, in the middle of NFT being such a bad word, it feels like companies are kind of bucking it and just being like, fuck it. Or what's that about?
That is just capitalism eating everything that pertains to money, no? Right? Okay. That's just everything getting pulled towards the center. You know, I read like the press release on on Walmart land, right?
Walmart land.
You know, and I read this press release and I get to the bottom and there's like an automatic survey that is like, after reading this, do you consider Walmart to be an innovative company?
What the fuck?
Yeah, you know, it's like strongly agree, neutral, you know, disagree, or strongly disagree. And it's like that. It's like checking some sort of box of like, they have to participate because like, otherwise they're not perceived publicly as an innovative company.
And Starbucks like use words like curated coffee experiences. I saw somebody post that or something. Yeah. It's like, oh, wow. It's almost like they invested in it at one point. Now they're just like, well, we got to do, the investors like, we got to get some return or something. You don't see any hope in it though. You don't see any sort of like, do you find that might be mainstream signaling towards more general acceptance, or not really?
I mean, yes, perhaps, yes.
Does it matter to you? Like, are you waiting for mainstream acceptance at all, or are you just comfortable right now and don't really give a shit what happens?
The only thing I am really interested in is that, like, you know, visual artists sit at the center of the creation of digital worlds, right? I want to, like, you know, like the A Lot of Money Vauxhall Hotel was one of the most profound experiences that I had in the very beginning, right? I will never go into the Wendy's verse, right? I will never go into Walmart land. I don't know why anybody would ever go into Walmart land unless they want like $1.
Curiosity alone, maybe.
I mean, you know, I'm interested in doing like some like group, if like we get all the artists to go into Walmart land together, or, you know, like some kind of like weird subversive, like if we could
like a flash protest mob in Walmart land.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, that's such a fun idea.
Yeah,
I hope that's the future. I hope that in the future we can go into Walmart land and graffiti it or something. That would be
totally
sick.
like take all the items off the shelves, throw them on the ground, like it's So
So like when you don't, it doesn't seem like you're really concerned like with mainstream acceptance and stuff. I guess the mainstream acceptance for a lot of people will mean, I guess, financial success or like financial stability for them personally or whatever, because they're tied up kind of in it and they want this mainstream success so that the price and value of things go up. But like aside from that, do you see the NFT world, the crypto art world continuing to exist on? And I guess like even in just parallel, like not even with just some boom happening again, but like just to maintain. Do you see it maintaining for the foreseeable future?
I mean, I'm not going anywhere.
That's how I feel. I mean, I feel that way too. I just when I think about that, I say, well, yeah, of course. But like then I'm like, well, I'm not suited to answer that question. What the fuck do I know?
I still think like some of the smartest, most talented individuals are here working in this space. I think there's a tremendous like what do they call it? Brain drain of individuals out of Web 2 into Web 3. But the question is it a prerequisite to be like a A16Z funded company to have success? And are we really just like, Jack Dorsey, like I'm sure, I think he said he like regretted a lot of the things that happened and the decisions that were made in Silicon Valley around like the products that were produced and created and what it ultimately became. I think a lot of the original founders of the internet, it's very much history is way against us.
But it's also for us very much. And the fact that like you can't put something back in a can, or like once a good technology exists, you can't put it away. That's never happened,
Right. I mean, look, like 10% secondary royalties forever and ever and always, right? For digital creators. That is so fundamentally huge and important and like gives respect and recognition. I think that's incredible. I think like the blockchain opportunity is of course bigger than the internet opportunity. I think that, there's
I mean, that's a huge statement. The blockchain opportunity is bigger than the internet opportunity.
Oh, blockchain touches everything in the same way pretty much that the internet now touches everything, right? Or it will. I truly believe that. But we're going up against, like, again, the most structured capital. It's very not in the interest. So,
well, in some hand with Ethereum and a lot of other coins, their tech plays kind of too, which separates it from some of those other like financial things where it's like, well, Ethereum will be built upon whether the value is this or that, like because it's necessary in this system. So there is this kind of separation from the financial market, at least that I see it. Maybe that doesn't make sense, but we do have to start wrapping this up, but it like I brought this up before too, but I was watching that show that was on Hulu. I didn't finish it, but I don't know if you watch TV or not, but there was this Hulu show about Pam and Tommy. Pam and Tommy, it was called. It was about Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee, and then the scandal, whatever you want to call it, the sex tape, and it became really interesting to me because that, I didn't think of it, but it was like the internet was very young at that time, very much in its infancy. And that was actually like the first time it had been used in that way, really, at all. And it's so funny watching that show because like her agent is like, oh, it's on the internet. And they're like, oh, that's no big deal then, right? Nobody even fucking knows. They're like, it's on this website. And they're like, but you can't, like, that's nothing, right? And like, there's whole scenes and long drawn out things and like of scenes of they're talking about like trying to understand what the internet is, people having conversations. This will never catch on. You have nothing to worry about with that tape. It's not going anywhere because it's just the internet. It's only on the internet and all this shit. And it made me laugh so hard because it like, that was early this year. So there was still tons of naysayers and stuff. And it was just like, these people that are saying all this stuff are the same people that were just like, what's a website? I'll never use the internet. What am I going to do with that? And now everybody just has it on their phone and can't live without it. Do you see it that way?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's like with this adoption comes like the pushing down of the technology. It's good. It's uninteresting to me, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, perhaps it was inevitable.
I got you, man. I like that
Yeah.
you say that it's not interesting to me because like it's really not that interesting to me either. It's just kind of hard to ignore, I guess. And I get talking to somebody like you who's almost like native to this world, you know, it's definitely a question that comes to mind because I don't understand it, but like you said, like it doesn't interest me enough for me to really dig in. Like I'm not trying to evangelize anybody because it doesn't matter to me if people like it or not, you know. But, like,
I got
go ahead.
invited to a very weird dinner once, and it was around NFTs, but it was all brands, right? It was like media company and brands, right? And we were going around um like the table introducing ourselves, and we had to maybe like say what we were excited about. And it got to me, and I just I asked everybody, like, everybody here is like so excited about like the potential for brands with NFTs, but like please name one successful brand activation, right, in the space, and nobody could do it, right? So like, again, just because something exists doesn't like have to exist. Just because people are saying they're doing something, like so much of this world is talk and nobody is actually doing anything. And sure, you can go like build this and say you're partnering and doing this, and but like for what?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I hear that. I dig that a lot, actually. But you don't see it as any sort of detriment that this community can thrive and go on without that, without.
I mean, I just think it takes away from, again, like this localized thing that I want to see of like people supporting each other, artists supporting artists. I don't want to like aggregate all of the like the profits of this space to Nike or to Adidas or to
Mm.
like, because
You know,
I
I do remember you talking about this now before last year. I remember you actually posting about that kind of thing too. Like you kind of had a moment where you were like, it seemed like mainstream companies were edging in, and there was kind of the fight back. Actually, I think that might have been this year when the Meta thing came. I know there was a big talk about like corporate interest within, or kind of a pushback against it.
yeah, I don't know. It's tricky.
That's
It's
fair, man.
yeah.
So, I mean, in closing, like, what do you have coming up that you're excited about? I mean, you don't even need to talk about that if there's nothing or whatever, but I just want to give you the opportunity, the floor to present something or promote something if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna launch these rooms from the museum. That'll happen very soon. People should check it out. I think it's
Yeah, how
just
can people like check out, like, if somebody wanted to go and just check out the Museum of Crypto without really knowing much about the, it at all, and just say a total noob maybe, where would they go? Museumofcrypto.com?
yeah. That is probably our more of our Web 2 presence. There's a lot of text there. There's like highlights. But the Web 3 presence is app.museumofcryptoart.com.
Okay, so you got a .com and then the .app, but it's both Museum of Crypto, just like it sounds.
Museumofcryptoart.com.
Museum of Crypto Art. Got it. Museumofcryptoart.com and .app. Okay,
Or
and
app.
then through
So
the
app.museumofcryptoart.com.
and through that, is there links like to everything?
It
Do you have a
is
hub somewhere?
intentionally designed as like a rabbit hole. So it's really a choose your own adventure.
What I love it. So we'll direct everybody there. In closing, what's the deal with the rabbit hole, man? You've used it as your kind of thing. You've had it in your name or your avatar and your icon and stuff like that. Are you a big fan of Alice in Wonderland, or do you just
Oh,
fascinated with
monster. I mean, monster fan of Alice in Wonderland. I think that is probably just like the coolest. I'm all about the surreal and the reawakening of imagination, the welcoming of possibilities, different possibilities. I think, there is so much mystery and magic and universal spiritual guidance that a lot of people tune themselves out to. So I think the more people can awaken to like the mysticism of this world is how we continue to like elevate consciousness.
beautiful, man. Everybody should take a trip down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your time, dude. Thank you so much.
Cheers,
This
bro.
has been a blast, dude. Like, it's been fun catching up with you. We haven't spoken in a while, so this has been wonderful. Really appreciate you, man.
Yeah,
Cheers.
thank you. Thank you, Jesse.
Take care, everybody.